Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakatodash. The double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS. We rule well, peace, and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of the video is Nero 47 says the crime will start back in the city soon. And ultimately, that'll be the last video I play, but this will be real quick. Basically, sedition is starting up, right? Trump is saying that he took the troops. Trump said he made the city safe and he pulled back the troops, and he's saying that the crime is going to start back soon. And he's allowed to bring back the troops, and he said he can even use military. So martial law, right? American against American, all these scriptures, right? But look what's happening. Look what's in the news. We have these two incidents right here, which I mentioned both of these. Well, actually, this one is new. This is J.D. Vance's house. Basically, shots fired at J.D. Vance's house, the president, the vice president of the United States. Someone pulled up on his house and shot gunshots at it. Okay.
This is big breaking news. There's just been an attack on Vice President J.D. Vance's home. And we are also seeing an evacuation of the Supreme Court in Arizona. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see this is the suspect after, quote, J.D. Vance's windows smashed and break-in attempt. His name is William DeFore, 26, charged with vandalism and criminal damage following alleged incident. All right, so he showed up to the vice president's house last night or early this morning and tried to break in, right, and smash the windows. I don't want to show the home because the vice president has requested that these photos not be circulated of his personal residence, but it seemed to be bulletproof glass or windows, something along those lines, or maybe laminated windows because the windows did not shatter, but there was a big hole in the window.
All right, let me grab this one real quick. So you got other people saying other things over here. Here we go.
This is Dabu7. We have word this morning of a serious security incident that has taken place at J.D. Vance's home in Ohio. They're saying that overnight, a shooting has happened where an individual decided to shoot into the home of J.D. Vance. Now, they're saying luckily no family members or him was home at the time, but Secret Service heard this. Individual rolled up and started firing these shots into the home. That's exactly what this article says. Overnight shooting incident. The Secret Service then sprang into action, ran up to the individual, found him trying to break into the home with a hammer, and they arrested him. They haven't given any name, any details, anything on this individual as of right now. We don't even know if they're going to hold him, much less all the charges. So we're still waiting on all that. But he also apparently, on his way down the street to the house, he did damage to a Secret Service vehicle. So he had to have been like staking out the area, knowing Secret Service was sitting there where they were, and obviously that this was Vance's home. But this whole block was locked down cold around the holidays. They warned all the neighbors. That would have to be a headache. But this is the situation. You can see the investigators looking at the gunshots on the left. And CNN just described this as an incident. They didn't say anything about what I just told you about the suspect, what he did, or anything like that. They just kept it as an incident. But as I get more information.
All right. So that was that video right there. You
can see here President or Vice President J.D. Vance reacting to this. All right. And you can also see as well, it says Arizona Supreme Court evacuated after package tests positive for explosives. The Department of Education building is also evacuated. All right. We'll get into more details of that in just a second, but let's read this. It says, I appreciate everyone's well wishes about the attack at our home. As far as I can tell, a crazy person tried to break in by hammering the windows. I'm grateful for the Secret Service and to the Cincinnati police for responding quickly. We weren't even home as we had returned already to DC. One request to the media: we try to protect our kids as much as possible from the realities of this life of public service. In that light, I am skeptical of the news value of plastering images of our home with holes in the windows. All right, so I'm not going to show that at the request of him. I have small kids too. I have 3 small kids under 6, so I completely understand wanting privacy here. But just think about what we've seen. Just a few days ago, there were U.S. military officers that had their homes burned to the ground, and they lost an animal. They lost their cat who was in the house in Washington, D.C. All right, these were.
All right, so I'm gonna play that video then right now. Where is this at? Okay.
This is big breaking news. U.S. military officers have just been attacked. Their homes have been destroyed, burned to the ground, and they've even lost their pets, they're saying. This is the next string of attacks that we are seeing on our military inside the U.S. This happened inside Washington, D.C. We're also getting a major warning from the FBI that they thwarted another attack as well, too, that was supposed to happen on New Year's. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see it says exclusive. This is coming out of the Daily Caller. It says anti-military sentiment. Space Force officers lose home and family cat in targeted arson attack. All right, somebody attacked their home in Washington, D.C. They burned it to the ground. They destroyed their cars. This is crazy, and they even lost a pet from it. And this happened over the holidays, over the past week. This is absolutely sickening and insane that this is happening to our military. All right, there are active people in the U.S. targeting them. It says 2 Space Force officers lost their home and their family cat in what appears to be a targeted attack just days after Christmas. In an exclusive interview with the Daily Caller, Major Jason, quote, Red Mills detailed how his house had been burglarized and lit on fire and had been vandalized. While he and his wife and his 10-month-old daughter were celebrating Christmas in Florida, Mills awoke to a 5 a.m. phone call on December 28th from the DC police notifying him that his house had been set on fire. He later learned that his car had also been ransacked and vandalized, with the messages reading F Trump and F you spaceman and F the USDS, which could stand for the United States Doge Service. All right, this is pretty insane. Space Force officers, I made a whole video on it. Go back a few days on my channel, maybe 3 days, and I made a whole video on it. All right, these attacks are becoming more and more prevalent, and now we're seeing attacks on the vice president's home. All right, pretty serious. It says a hammer-wielding intruder allegedly tried to break into JD Vance's home. The man was taken into custody after the alleged break-in in Cincinnati. It says William IV, 26, has been charged, and it's alleged that he also goes by a different name. I think it's, quote, Julia or something along those lines. He also goes by I believe a woman's name as well, too. All right, that there, I saw some reporting on that, unconfirmed, but I think his alias is Julia. It says here that he's been charged with 1 count of each of obstructing official business, criminal damaging, or endangering on a suspicious package with no return label. The Arizona Supreme Court building near downtown Phoenix was evacuated while authorities investigated a package that tested positive for explosives on Monday morning. Court officials say the situation began when staff found a suspicious package with no return label in the building's mailroom near 15th Avenue and Washington Street. The Arizona Department of Public Safety says troopers and other law enforcement responded, and that the package contained multiple vials, including 2 that tested positive for, quote, homemade explosives. Pretty wild here. It's just every day we're getting something that's not normal. It shouldn't be happening in our society, and we're kind of slipping closer and closer. This is what happens in places like Mexico.
All right, so you see the title, you see the guy down there. You can go check these videos out. Of course, we got this right here, 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men." Right, and this is you're trying to overthrow the governments. It says, "In invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." So that's what's happening in these videos I just showed you, right? And it's only increasing. It says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation." Right, and pretty much, great tribulation is definitely coming. Right, as you can see, things are amping up. And I want to grab this real quick to what is it? Isaiah 19. It says, Isaiah 19:1, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai rocked upon a swift cloud." right, which is the chariot, and shall come into Egypt, which is America, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the and I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptian. So this is the American against American, right? And they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And ultimately, like I said, you can see these things increasing. Now, here's what Trump said regarding, what he's been doing with the, the agents, the marshal, the National Guard and things like that. He said crime is about to increase right now. So listen to this.
Mr. President, so he's threatened war with the entire Western Hemisphere. I got another clip for you here.
About the National Guard out of Portland
in
Los Angeles.
I was also threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. So always remember, the cruelty that we practice overseas always makes its way home. So now Trump is saying that he will invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military to all 50 states of the United States of America.
And you know what? You know that Portland, we got it down to almost no crime. You know that? But we pulled it out. We had a Supreme Court decision. We can go back. We're allowed to go back in. But we'll go back in when the crime starts. Look, the crime will soon start because they now know that we're out. And at the appropriate time, we'll go back in, and we may, if we're allowed to. The most powerful thing we haven't used the Insurrection Act.
You're considering using the Insurrection Act?
I've always considered it, but we haven't needed it anywhere. 48% of the presidents of this country have used it.
That's not true.
Bush used it, I think, 22 times or something.
That's not true either.
Right? I mean, Bush the elder.
So now Trump is threatening to wage war on the American population as well.
Venezuela.
Do you expect to take an action against Greenland?
A message.
You go to his transcript. You can see what he's saying right there on the right. And I'm going to play it. And what he's, let's listen again.
That you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
The drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way.
That's a threat to Canada.
Something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Mr. President, so he's threatened war with the entire Western Hemisphere. I got another clip for you here.
About the National Guard out of Portland in Los Angeles.
I was also threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. So always remember, the cruelty that we practice overseas always makes its way home. So now Trump is saying that he will invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military to all 50 states of the United States of America.
And you know what? You know that Portland, we got it down to almost no crime. You know that? But we pulled it out. We had a Supreme Court decision. We can go back. We're allowed to go back in. But we'll go back in when the crime starts. Look, the crime will soon start because they now know that.
All right. He said, we're allowed to go back in, but we'll go back in when the crime starts. Look, the crime will soon start because they now know that we're out. And at the appropriate time, we'll go back in. Right. And that's the same thing he was talking about regarding the situation with the attack on Vladimir Putin's, house or whatever the case may be. Right. His mansion, he told Zelensky that now is not the right time, and it reports, just, what the analysts are saying and whatnot, they're saying that the CIA has something to do with it, because they were saying when it happened, the CIA came up and said what actually happened. And people was like, wait a minute, how do you know what actually happened? So that's their own tongue falling upon themselves in these last days.
That we're out. And at the appropriate time, we'll go back in, and we may, if we're allowed to. The most powerful thing we haven't used the Insurrection Act.
You're considering using the Insurrection Act?
I've always considered it, but we haven't needed it anywhere. 48% of the presidents of this country have used it.
That's not true.
Bush used it, I think, 22 times or something.
That's not true either.
Right? I mean, Bush the elder.
So now Trump is threatening to wage war on the American population as well.
Venezuela.
All right, there you go. So, hey, just blowing the trumpet on that. Shalom. To the hopeful elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.